What if the greatest power in ancient Egypt wasn't a pharaoh or a warrior, but a woman? A goddess of love, magic, and resurrection, who defied death itself. Meet Isis, goddess, queen, mother, and perhaps the first superhero in human history. In the grand temples of ancient Egypt, where gods controlled sun, sky, and time itself, Isis stood apart. She wasn't just worshipped, she was adored. For centuries, her story transcended borders and belief systems, evolving into legend. She wasn't just part of the myth, she defined it. Life in ancient Egypt was a miracle balanced on the edge of chaos. The Nile flooded and receded like breath. Harvests meant survival. Death was never far. The Egyptians believed that existence was a battle between order, Mat, and disorder, Isfet. Everything from the sun rising to crops growing depended on harmony between divine forces. But there was one fear that lingered, the fear of being forgotten in death, of dying unjustly, of never reaching the afterlife. To make it through the underworld's treacherous halls and judgment, a soul needed guidance, love, and protection, something that went beyond brute strength or even divine justice. Enter Isis. She wasn't a war goddess or a judge. She was something more intimate, more powerful in a quiet, eternal way. The Egyptians needed a deity who understood grief, who embodied devotion, and who would fight for her loved ones, even beyond death. Isis became that hope. She wasn't born from the chaos, she was the answer to it. Isis, called Aset in ancient Egyptian, was the daughter of the sky goddess Nut and the earth god Geb. She was sister to Osiris, Set, and Nephthys. While Set ruled the desert and Osiris the underworld, Isis embodied something deeper: life, love, and sacred knowledge. She was the goddess of healing, motherhood, fertility, magic, and kingship. Her symbols reflected her dual nature, nurturing and powerful. The throne-shaped crown she wore symbolized her as the seat of pharaohs, their literal and spiritual foundation. An ankh, the symbol of life, often appeared in her hand. She was also portrayed with wings outstretched protectively over the dead, or with the solar disk framed by cow horns, connecting her to Hathor and celestial energy. Isis wasn't feared like Set, or revered from a distance like Ra. She was loved. People prayed to her as a mother, a wife, a healer, a queen, and her legend only grew more powerful with the story that changed everything. It begins with betrayal. Osiris, Isis's husband and brother, was king of Egypt. Under his reign, peace and fertility flourished. But his jealous brother Set couldn't bear it. One day, Set tricked Osiris into lying inside an ornate chest, then slammed it shut, sealed it with molten lead, and cast it into the Nile. Osiris was dead. His body drifted away, and Egypt was plunged into despair. But Isis did not mourn idly. She became a seeker. She scoured the earth, pleading with the gods, whispering to the winds, until she found Osiris's coffin entangled in the roots of a tree in distant Byblos. She brought him home, but before she could restore him, Set found the body, and this time he ripped it into 14 pieces, scattering them across Egypt. That should have been the end, but not for Isis. With divine will and unshakable love, she searched the entire land, retrieving each fragment. Alongside her sister Nephthys, she reassembled him, wrapping his body in linen, the first mummy. Through ancient spells and sacred rituals, Isis used her magic to resurrect Osiris long enough to conceive a child, Horus. Then, alone, she fled to the marshes of the Nile Delta. There, she raised Horus in secret, hiding from Set's assassins, healing wounds with breath, and teaching him the knowledge of the gods. When Horus came of age, he challenged Set for the throne. A battle that shook the heavens followed, but it was Isis's wisdom, cunning, and protection that ensured her son's triumph. She didn't just resurrect a god, she resurrected order. Isis was more than a goddess. She was a divine force of loyalty, healing, and unbreakable will. In her story, death is not the end. Love endures. Magic is real. And through Isis, the ancient Egyptians saw that the heart, when filled with love, is mightier than any sword. What part of Isis's story speaks to you the most? Her magic, her strength, or her heartbreak? Let us know in the comments. And if you're curious about what became of her son Horus and his battle against Set, check out our next video. Like, subscribe, and join us as we keep exploring the timeless gods of ancient Egypt.